In this video, I want to go over some of the stages from the original Tomb Raider game that I personally think would benefit from a rework for the upcoming game. The very original Tomb Raider game in total included 4 stages: Peru, Greece, Egypt, and Lost Island. I also wonder if some of these stages are going to be completely renewed or the original aspect of some of the stages will be kept. I think it's a pretty obvious answer that yes, but I also think that it is important to consider the fact that some of these stages were simply too old and the mechanics and the way the levels function need to be completely changed. With that said, in the recent trailer we finally got a snippet of the stage Peru, and it appears to be that it is more colorful rather than in the original, and I want to talk about this area. We can clearly tell that this will be a puzzle, which is very exciting. I think what will be super beneficial for these old stages is to fill up the places with more puzzles, challenges, and enemies even, as I think that we can agree that the original game has had an issue where it felt like everything is too hollow and too empty. I was pleasantly surprised with Tomb of the Qualapack stage because it seems like that it's going to have more action, more animation and fluidity to it, and also the death traps. It feels very rich, very cinematic, very colorful, and very action focused. Which respectfully wasn't the case for Anniversary at all. I think that in Anniversary this stage was very boring. Nothing special happened except for the ball rolling down, it starts to earthquake, and you don't even have any action scenes going on or any special cutscenes, you just simply need to walk away from it, which felt very empty. I think that Tomb of the Qualapack, while especially iconic, I think that it needed more life to it in Anniversary, especially with the puzzle of those 2 shitty pillars that you had to figure out how to move for 45 minutes, which thankfully I think in the new trailer we can see that there are platforms that are going to replace the pillars, so we don't have to struggle as much anymore. The next problematic stage was definitely Tomb of the Tihocan. I think in this stage everything just felt extremely hollow and empty. It was very wasteful if I'm being very honest, and part of the reason for that was because you had nothing to do there in reality. It wasn't anything too special and definitely shouldn't take you for an hour to go over an entire area like that. Not the only one complaining about this, I did hear other people complain about this stage as well and how wasteful it felt, so I think that in the renewed version it can either be rich with death traps and action scenes and other things going on that could potentially make the scene interesting, or at the very least just make it into a very small transitional place to just move to the Centaur fight from there. Next stage is Colosseum in Greece. I think that this is a very beautiful stage, but it had the same issue as many other stages. It felt way too large and you almost nearly had nothing to do in that huge area. Another example of waste of time were definitely Atlas mines. I mean, this part of the story is very important, but the stage needs a lot of rework. The only thing memorable about this stage is that it quite literally became the memorial for Larson. I think just like Tomb of Tihocan, this stage definitely needs a lot of rework, and I think it can be made into a small fragment rather than into a huge stage that you need to figure out what to do for hours. Final conflict was honestly great, and for a simple reason is because we started to get more cutscenes. To summarize, I think that these stages are wonderful, and I think that Tomb Raider Anniversary as well as the very original game from the 1996 is amazing. When I talk about these levels and I say that they have flaws, you have to keep in mind that this game is at least 20 years old, with the original game being at the minimum almost 31 years old. It's obvious that the new version will definitely be likable, but also the real question is how the story will be.